Good afternoon. Welcome to TAG's Tech Talk. My name is Larry Williams. I'm the President and CEO of the Technology Association of Georgia. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Tech Talks is conversations with Georgia's technology leaders discussing subjects such as leadership, technology, innovation, and what drives an innovation community. Today, I am having a conversation with Ken Meyer. Ken is the CIO of Truist. As many of you know, Truist is the new merger between BB&T and SunTrust. We're delighted to have Ken with us today. And we're going to go and talk about leadership, and we'll talk a little bit about what it takes from a technology point of view to implement a merger of this size, and then some other great things about Georgia's great innovation community. Welcome, Ken.
Hey, thanks for having me, Larry. Appreciate the opportunity to chat for a little bit.
Right. Hey, just to start off, tell us a little bit about your role at Truist, Ken, and also give us a little bit of an idea and a feel for your career journey and what's got you to the place that you are today.
Sure. So first, if we talk about the role, as you mentioned, I'm our CIO for our digital channels and innovation at Truist. For those not as familiar with Truist, again, it's the merger of both SunTrust and BB&T that got finalized back in December of 2019. We're about the sixth largest bank now, and we're really excited about bringing new experiences, new products, new features to our clients at Truist. And luckily, I have the opportunity to really bring that to life with my role in digital. So my team supports, when you think about all unauthenticated experiences and websites, to the marketing technology that ultimately powers a lot of our marketing engine and our sales component of our business, to more of the authenticated experiences from a servicing perspective. So you think things like our app and online banking properties, but also all of the digital account opening aspects and digital commerce. And then my team goes into other areas as well from a digital perspective. So things like our enterprise CRM platform, I manage our Salesforce platform for the bank. Our intelligent automation, which covers things like RPA and RDA and ML and more of the AI and cognitive type aspects of automation. My team covers areas like our LightStream platform, which is our national lending platform, which is a digital-only experience for consumer lending products. And then I've got teams that focus on things like quality engineering and CI/CD pipeline builds and cloud operations and a number of other areas. So it's exciting, and it's the area that frankly is the front door to our clients, which is why I'm really humbled to have the opportunity to lead a really fantastic team making a difference for our clients. When it comes to career journey, I think everybody's journey is, it's never a straight line, as I think you and many others would agree. I came out of undergraduate and really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I did what I think a lot of people do, and I became a consultant. And I spent most of my time as a consultant in a lot of financial services companies. So spent, the large majority, I'd say 80-90% of my consulting career was in financial services in some areas, banking, insurance. And what was really great about that is, I looked at it as an opportunity to learn about companies' cultures and leadership and opportunities to really kind of see how other organizations run, and not just as another project. And I think that helped me quite a bit as I, navigated the consulting landscape. And I had an opportunity, and I had a lot of really great mentors that helped me move up relatively quickly, to really look at everything as an opportunity and a learning opportunity. And so at the time, SunTrust was my client. And, as many consultants they get the ask to, hey, do you want to come on board? And frankly, I was at that stage of my life. I had, at the time, 2 young kids. Now I have 4. But I had 2 young kids, and I thought, that was the right time. And I actually joined the bank at SunTrust on the business side. And I ran strategy for our credit and operations team on the wholesale side of the business, which at the time we were really creating a new middle office and really trying to figure out exactly how to build a better mousetrap for our wholesale clients. And about 9 months into it, after designing the organization with my boss, our head of wholesale banking came and asked me to run operations. And I had never run operations before, to be honest. And he talked about getting bruised in a new spot and really kind of being able to really influence the change in behavior of our teammates and the process. And that was a great opportunity. And I enjoyed that probably almost as much as any other role I've ever had, because it really was phenomenal to get to understand the people behind all the process, and they just worked so hard. So it was really great. And then I got asked to kind of come back into the technology area, and I had really an interesting job at first as an enterprise CTO in our old model, where I ran shared services and ran our investment portfolio and our tech strategy and a number of other things, our agile COE. And then about a year later, had an opportunity to be our CTO for the consumer bank, which was mortgage, wealth, retail, all product services. And that's when I brought in the digital and marketing aspect of the role, and did that up until the merger. So when my boss, Scott Case, offered me the opportunity to work with and really focus on that digital client experience, I jumped at that opportunity because, like I said, I think it's the future and it's the way that we're really leaning. And I'm excited about the opportunity to introduce Truist to so many of our fantastic clients that we have today, and hopefully even more clients.
That's a great story. I think that's a good segue into something I was going to ask you a little bit later. But the role really of the CIO has evolved over time. I joke and say but maybe you would say it still is. But every problem is a technology problem, and every success is somebody else's, and if it fails, it's the CIO's fault. But the CIO really is more in the business conversations now more than they've ever been, because technology is what's driving revenue. It's what drives sales and what makes the business successful. So how has that evolved in your career? Because this, your consulting background, your business side, this integration and merger of your skill set seems to be very appropriate to what a modern day CIO needs to do and what we're in the position they need to be in.
Yeah, I think, frankly, Larry, I think I just lucked out in timing of all of these changes because, years ago, you probably would have looked at me and said, yeah, I don't know that you're a CIO, right? Like, where's your deep coding background and everything else? And it's funny because you're spot on. I think the reality is that technology is such an integral part of everything that we do, whether it's, internally processing or, client facing experiences. It's literally at the core of everything now. And in the past, it was a necessary evil, and it was the thing that we had to do. And you would throw your requirements over the wall, and the guys in the tech shop would, take the order and build it out and hope that it worked and hope that it met the expectations. And it's a different story now, right? I mean, we're thinking about how are we going to leverage technology to create new products and new experiences and really drive value to the clients. And if you're not a technologist or a CIO and you're not sitting at the table with your business partners, helping shape the strategy and the future of that business, then I'd argue you're not a very effective CIO or technologist. To really drive change. And so, I look at it as my role is equal parts, trying to run a really tight shop and deliver on, new experiences and the technology aspect. but it's also equal parts of being a thought leader, and really providing those ideas as catalysts for change, to our business partners. But it's also being able to translate the value in terms that our business partners will appreciate and really be able to consume in a way that makes sense. Because if you walk in and start talking about tech debt and upgrades of servers and network changes and everything else, they're going to get lost, right? They're not going to understand the value of doing those things. But I'll tell you, when that stuff breaks and their experiences go down and their clients are impacted, they don't understand, right? It's like the power. They just want it to work.
Right.
But if you don't, take good care of your house, then, you may be at fault when the power goes out and you're not getting it back on. So, it's our job to really translate. And I think that's what's been one of the areas of strength for me in my career, is that being able to sit on the business side as well as play technology roles throughout my career. Even though I'm not an engineer by trade, I'm able to translate that value that technology brings to the business, which has been, something that I think has been able to be a benefit to both myself as well as my business partners.
It's an incredible opportunity that you have. And if I really think about the pieces and parts that you get to deal with on a day-to-day basis, on one hand, it can be daunting. On the other hand, it can be exciting. So you're managing enterprise within the corporation, and now two corporations becoming one. You're a business-to-business customers. You have consumer customers. You have government, academic customers. You also work in a highly regulated environment, and you've got to pull that together. So how do you approach those multiple things? And then let me just throw out some more alphabet soup. You've got to worry about, the user experience, the employee experience with the programs and the applications that you put in. How do you sort of take on all of that?
I'll tell you, when you say it like that, it definitely sounds daunting. And I think, honestly, you take it day by day. But the real answer is you build a high-performing team that you trust and you can lean on to go and deliver for our clients and teammates every day, right? And luckily for me, I get to work with some phenomenal teammates. And not only did we have, and I came from the heritage SunTrust side, and we're so tired of those types of terminology anymore, right? Because we're so focused on being Truist. But, I will say, if you look back, I inherited some phenomenal new teammates when this merger closed. I mean, I couldn't be more happy about the talent that really kind of came together. And then, frankly, with the world in 2020 the way it's been, and COVID, people dropped those collars, right? They stopped talking about on our teams about where they came from and the heritage, and really focused on the client and helping each other and getting through that. And I am really pleased about, I think COVID and those things really kind of sped up us coming together as a company. And I will tell you, from my team's perspective, nobody cared anymore, right? It was all about the work and the client and the experience and the technology and bringing those things together. So, it is difficult. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, it's doing a merger, in the largest bank merger in 20 plus years, right? This is a big deal. And, having to keep stability and security and reliability of existing applications in production, while also, focusing on building new experiences for our clients and bringing these things together, that is definitely a task, and it takes a lot of work. And, our teammates are working extremely hard right now to make sure that we're bringing the best that Truist has to offer to our clients, now as well as for the future. So it's a lot. But if I didn't have the team that I had, I probably wouldn't be here. They'd probably have gotten rid of me a long time ago. So, I get that opportunity to both kind of re-recruit our talent every single day in hopes to retain them. And then we've also been really focused on bringing some new talent in as well, right? It's time to continue to raise the bar and show the world that, you know, this is a destination for technologists, right? Banks not normally have been that, but the game has changed now.
Well, talk about how do you build teams that really are dedicated to innovation and driving innovation and technology, and then maintaining that culture. You mentioned culture before, and it's just so important a part. It's an important word, and it's important that we practice it. So, how do you approach that?
Well, I mean, I think we instill, at least, you know, within our own teams, purpose is at the center of what we do, right? So I think if you're a part of a purpose-driven company, you'll understand what I'm saying. If you're not, you may glance over that and think of, oh yeah, that sounds really nice. But, you know, our purpose at Truist is to inspire and build better lives and communities. And, you know, for us, it's got to be rooted in everything that we do. How are we going to better the life of our client? How are we going to make an impact on our community? And, you know, we do that as teammates, and we have a commitment to one another. And in my team in particular, you know, there's a sense of family. It's important that we have each other's back. Families don't always agree on everything. Families fight. Families, you know, do a lot of stuff together. But the reality is we spend so much time together as a group.
Come back together around the dinner table, right?
That's right, right? We spend so much time, Larry. Like you spend more time at work in some cases than you do with your own family. And so if you treat each other with that level of respect and integrity, and you're really focused on results and not just achieving those results, but surpassing expectations and constantly raising the bar with each other. You know, that's what we've tried to instill in our team. You know, I did it before, but now again, we've got this amazing opportunity to kind of reestablish culture as a new company. And it's so exciting to see people really buy in, right? And we've talked about, you know, I talk about it a lot with my team, leveraging today's technology today, right? Not yesterday's tomorrow. And, you know, I think we're doing that. And we're really leaning into more modern architecture and technologies, and we're trying to enable our teams to work, you know, with the things and the tools that they need to be successful. And if we continue to have the back of our teammates and we listen to our teammates on what's important to them, and we stand up for them, but we also give them the autonomy to make decisions and not, you know, sit over top of them with a command and control mentality. You know, every time we've done that and we've established, you know, agile practices, and we allowed people to fail fast and do those things, we usually come out with a much better product. So, yeah, that's really been our focus.
Well, let's talk about some of those things. So you know, largest bank merger in 20 years, and then a pandemic comes in on top of it. But I think, you know, we've talked, there are opportunities that have come about this as well. Can you talk about some of the opportunities? The digital acceleration is the term that everybody's using, and everything from, you know, trying to figure out e-notaries, you know, contactless payments, and a lot of other terms that are out there. How have y'all embraced this and really been able to think through your next iteration from a technology and innovation point of view?
Yeah, so it's funny, right? I laughed at first when everybody talked about, you know, you'd see the text message. I'm sure you got it, right? What's been most impactful to your digital transformation, the CIO, the CTO, or COVID? And I, you know, you laugh at that and you go, yeah, that's funny. But the reality is that it didn't create the need for digital, right? Everybody was on some form of digital transformation, which is why I think you keep hearing and rehearing, you know, leaders and companies talk about the acceleration of it, which I really believe is the case. And, you know, we obviously, as part of this merger, right, the big part of the merger was technology and client experience and innovation and all of those things. And so getting to scale to be able to provide the clients with better experiences and one that they deserve was a huge part of this. And then you get, you know, you're on your path, you just start. getting moving on getting to that point, and then you get hit with a pandemic, right? And you learn new things every day during that pandemic. It's hard to believe that we're talking about just 4 or 5 months ago when this thing really started, because it feels like it's been years. And I think, we all sit back as leaders and we talk a really good game all the time about, MVP mentality and working fast and nimble and agile. But the reality is that until you really get faced with that adversity and you get comfortable and you're forced into that concept of a minimal viable product, I don't know that anybody really appreciates or knows what that means. And, what this pandemic has forced us to do is get comfortable with what that really means, not just at the team level, but as a leadership level. And so, I think about, we were developing things in hours, right? We were measuring them in hours and getting them to production, not days, right? Hours. And so, whether it was launching a number of sites around on Truist.com and Truist Cares and some of the information to be able to effectively communicate with our clients, which those changes were happening in minutes, right? I mean, literally. We built a branch scheduler to allow clients to be able to make appointments, so that way they weren't, putting themselves at harm's way and standing at lines outside of our branches when we had to limit the number of people in the branches, or then pivoting to then have to allow them to schedule calls with our branch teammates because we ultimately closed the branches. Or, you think about the payments component. We had clients sitting on the phones, on hold, waiting to talk to somebody about payment relief, or I can't pay my mortgage, or I can't pay my credit card. And we enabled the ability for clients to be able to do that digitally with just a couple of minutes, right? And not have to sit on that phone. Or we deployed, cloud-based IVR technology to allow for callback solutions and deployed that in a matter of days, right? I mean, there's things that we've done, and the nice thing, a part of it that I really think was so foundational to us is that this wasn't just a technology thing, right? This was having product and design and compliance and legal and our business partners and everybody coming together and talking about how do we do what's best for our clients right now and get this out as soon as possible. And PPP was a great example. Who builds a digital loan origination solution in 10 days? How do you do that? And I'll tell you, we did it because we weren't afraid to, take chunks and deploy it in parts and continuing to iterate and continuing to make it better over the course of that period. And, we had some great partners and we had some fantastic teamwork across our technology teams. Bryce Elliott, one of my peers, and his team did a phenomenal job, and my team partnered with them, and Matt Spriggs, another one of my peers on the retail side, we all threw out the org charts, right? You throw out the playbook. You don't care about org charts and who does what. What you care about is getting the work done for our clients when they're most in need. And it changed something, right? I mean, people really took a hold of that and said, we're doing things the right way now. How do we capture this and put it in a bottle and continue to leverage this type of teamwork going forward? And I think it's been fantastic.
Well, it's interesting because, I've talked to people, CIOs in the public sector, and I think the other one is like telemedicine. And we talked about the acceleration and what did it. And a lot of the things that accelerated, and you touched on this, it wasn't about the technology or the products or the software. It was other things. It was policies that were in the way. It was practices that were in the way. And once necessity moved those aside, they were able to deploy the right technologies in no time. So telemedicine, especially with HIPAA regulations, government, how do we get citizens what they need? See it in the banking industry. How do we record deeds? How do we go through the mortgage process and the compliance and security? Do you think we'll go back to the old ways?
I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting because I also think that some of our regulatory agencies are going to maybe change their perspective on how some things are done, right? I mean, you think about just this isn't a pandemic that just impacted a couple of industries. This thing impacted the world, right? I mean, it's got some lasting effects. So whether it's, teleworking, right? I mean, think about just all of the buildings and everything that now people are talking about. Do we ever need to go back? And I mean, there's just so much of a broader impact. So I do think that it will impact a lot of our regulatory agencies, and they'll be rethinking certain things. But I also think that my point earlier, and you mentioned it, we're a highly regulated industry, right? You can't just go do whatever you want to do when you want to do it. And sometimes some of that is how we interpret things, right? And there's risk culture that we want to make sure that we are staying in alignment with. But I think it's partially our job and our partners from a product and a design perspective to constantly be asking ourselves what's best for our clients, and how do we make sure that our interpretation or regulation or any type of controls that need to be placed don't negatively impact our clients. And I think that we do a good job balancing that. But I think when you're trying to move so fast and you're trying to be proactive, you have to have your risk partners and your compliance partners and the legal partners at the table, right? That they can't be a support function. They need to be part of the team, and they need to be really focused on what are we trying to get to. And that doesn't mean, find a way to say yes to everything. But what it means is try to figure out what the client really needs, and let's work backwards from there, right? And how do we get to yes versus immediately just put the wall up and say no? What are the critical things that need to be in place? What are the controls? What are the disclosures or whatever it may be that are required to make sure that we do something safely and securely and compliant with the law, right? And the regulations. So it is difficult, but I think that there will be changes across the board. I mean, I don't know that you can really predict it, but I can't imagine we would just go back to, not allowing things like e-signature on things. And I mean, that just seems like it's no-brainers to me. But luckily I get to play in the role that I'm in for a reason, and I've got great teammates that play in the role that they do, and I'll let them, make sure that they're representing our clients and keeping us safe.
In the cybersecurity world, we always say that compliance doesn't equal security.
That's right. Well, and I'll tell you, our security teammates have been fantastic in the sense of, the most secure app in the world are the ones that nobody can use, right? So if you can't get in and you can't use it, it's pretty secure, right? So there's always
like having a server. Turn the server off and wrap it in cellophane, and it's perfect.
That's right. And so the reality is that they're great partners in the sense that that we're constantly looking at how do we make sure that we're not overdoing something, right? But we need to be secure and reliable, and that trust is so important. We talk about T3 right now of technology and touch equaling trust. And my goal, right, is to digitize trust. We need to figure out how do we create that trust with our clients in a digital world where, you get in your car today and you tell your phone or you tell your car you want to go somewhere, and you punch in an address and you blindly follow that. That's trust, right?
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine 20 years ago, saying that your phone was going to tell you how to get somewhere and you would just follow it? I mean, I don't know anybody. I think everybody looks at Waze as an example and goes a different route once. And then when they realize that Waze was right, they never go a different route again, right? And that's the type of experience, right? We want to be able to help our clients and let them really trust us. And whether that's cyber or whether that's, advice or whatever it may be, we've got to establish that digital trust.
So much because, everybody wants you got to maintain the privacy and the security of everybody's system, and that's that trust. And I think that's extremely important. So building on that, let's move and let's think about the future. And so This is a point where I go, Ken, let's look into your crystal ball. sitting in, Atlanta, Georgia, global hub for fintech, for transactions. SunTrust, I still call it, Truist, you're still a hometown brand as far as I'm concerned. And, this is part of our DNA in Georgia. So what's the future look like? I mean, we can talk about contactless payments and we can talk about all those other things, but what's your vision and what's your view of the future of finance?
Well, I mean, if I cheat a little bit, I think you just look at the global economy and you look at what other countries have done. And, I think they're usually good leading indicators. And the United States sometimes is ahead, sometimes is behind, and sometimes is a fast follower, right? And, if you think about payments is such a big part of the Georgia economy, if you would, from a fintech perspective. I think we get to real-time payments and those types of rails really quickly, right? I think payments becomes one of those commodities, back to my comment around the electricity, right? Like we need it, and it's got to be fast and it's got to be reliable. So I do think that payments will continue to be such a focal point. But, if I think about what's going on out there in the rest of the global economy, in the world of financial services and technology, one is this concept of open banking is a very real thing. I mean, if you look at what has gone on in Europe in particular around open banking and PSD2 and data privacy and who owns that data. And we've seen some of that already with things like CCPA and the Protection Act out in California. And there's other states that have since then, put in some regulations and requirements around client data. But, the open banking thing is here to stay, in my opinion. And, I don't know that anybody in the US has necessarily really, cornered that market and fully embraced and figured out exactly how to become an industry leader in that space. And so, to me, I think that's a huge opportunity for us to not only continue to kind of modernize our architecture and the internal workings of our bank, but think about how do we continue to integrate and work with local fintechs or global fintech companies, and do it in a secure way that doesn't require, all of the old ways of working, of onboarding and issuing you a laptop and getting you onto our network. And, we can spin up sandboxes and we can let them consume APIs, which, from a tech and innovation and development perspective, I think that future is really bright and will drive a lot of really great innovations. But then also companies want to work different with us. So, companies don't always want to have an app, right? They just want you to plug into their systems and be able to process. And so being able to do that through open APIs and allow them to consume those, there's even opportunities to monetize those types of things and treat APIs as real financial products. So I think that is definitely one area that I would say is coming, right? Especially to the US. But there's a lot of different things. I mean, I think channels are changing. I think conversational channels are really going to become more of the way in which we work. I think you've seen it over time just in the digital space. You first had some SMS type banking, and then you had your online banking, and now mobile has by far surpassed web transactions and logins. And so, now what's next? Is it wearables? Is it, the Alexas and the home pods? Is it your car? Everything is connected these days. So, there's going to be new channels and emerging channels that come up, and we need to be able to meet our clients when, where, and how they want, right? So we can't just be solely focused on a single channel. And, the omni-channel was a thing before where everybody wanted to start, stop, and continue in different channels. I don't know that you wake up every morning saying, you know what, I want to open an account and talk to somebody in the branch, do some of it online, call a contact center. Like you don't do that, right? That happens when you have a problem. So, I think we'll continue to look at different opportunities, but there are some clients, I mean, in some banks, I know in Asia Pacific as an example, one of our competitors, CIOs, was talking to me about, the fact that they're integrating into other people's apps, right? Like there's a lot of people that don't even want a banking app in different parts of the world. So they just want to be able to pay their bills and have all their stuff where they need to be in other people's apps, which is a really fascinating and interesting concept. So they're in that lands square in the open banking space. And then there's questions around cash, right? So it's ironic right now that I think it was the city of Philadelphia, where they had a lot of people saying we weren't going to accept cash anymore, and they forced people to start taking cash. And now you look at it and go, there's a lot of germs on that cash. So, can you really blame people for that, right? And there's different types of fraud, right? So to me, this, back to your pandemic comment, like this pandemic could change innovation, right? And the future of our industry. And it could be just in the simple form of maybe they stop, they do away with cash. Imagine what that would look like. And there's a lot of Nordic and Scandinavian countries, right, that have gone that route already in other parts of the globe. So there's so much that could happen. But, I think it's going to be interesting, and who knows how some of the tech titans will influence the banking industry, and will they continue to be partners like you've seen, or will they, look to actually start getting their own charters and launching their own versions of banks? Time will tell, but I think, we want to be on the leading edge of a lot of that stuff, and we want to position ourselves to be there for our clients, like I said, when, how, and where they want.
We're going to have a whole new conversation on, distributed ledger-based systems, cryptocurrencies, and where they go.
So much to talk about, right?
It is. I was at a fintech conference in Hong Kong last year, and one of their major themes that they talked about was people don't need banks, they need services. And that is a lot of what you were just teeing up in a lot of different ways, and a lot of different ways that can manifest itself.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Georgia. That is a little bit of a different angle, though, even in itself, right? Because one could argue, and I could make the argument that, people do need banks because, they need advice. And there's a lot of people out there that want that personalized advice, and it may come in the form of a service or an experience or something else. But, it's a little bit of the chicken or the egg, but I agree, people want what they want. And, there's this concept of the segment of one, right? Everybody is unique and different. And I think, in 2020, I think that's even more relevant to everybody's needs. And, we need to be able to service all of our customers and clients, right? Not just a specific segment.
So let's talk about Georgia, and let's talk about some of the strengths, and let's talk about the workforce that you find here to be able to drive the innovation that you need.
Well, and you mentioned it earlier, right? It was a little bit of a surprise to many, especially here in Georgia, that we're used to kind of seeing SunTrust headquartered in Georgia. So, when the announcement was made, I'm sure it definitely created some excitement in North Carolina, but it also created some concern in the state of Georgia. And I think our commitment to Georgia is as strong as it's ever been, if not more. When we first announced, I know our then CEO, now COO, Bill Rogers, spent a lot of time with a lot of folks out in the state of Georgia to make sure that they understood our commitment was definitely still there. And when it comes to technology, we have a tremendous amount of people and teammates that are here in the state of Georgia. And frankly, there's a ton of talent in this area, and we continue to look for opportunities, and we're still hiring folks. And so if anybody out there is interested, drop me a note. But, the talent is rich, and it's not only rich from an industry perspective, but the educational components here with some of the schools that are close by and in the state of Georgia, obviously Georgia Tech and Georgia State and the University of Georgia, and some of our other colleges that we recruit from, and Morehouse, like all of these schools are just fantastic type pipelines for talent for us. And then to have the fintech and the technology groundswell, right? To also take in some of this talent and really, cultivate the talent and then have the opportunity to maybe scoop some of it up. I mean, it creates such a rich breeding ground of technologists that, we're excited about continuing to partner with the state and organizations like yourself and others and really make a difference. Back to the purpose, right? Like
Right.
it's our goal, right? A really strong pipeline of opportunity and give everybody opportunity. And that's the other piece. The state of Georgia provides so much diverse talent. Everybody, the city of Atlanta does a great job of really providing opportunity to just about everybody, regardless of what color or, what sex you are. There's so many great programs to be involved with. And we're trying to make sure that we keep our finger on the pulse in the state and make sure that we're doing our part.
So at TAG, we certainly recognize the strength that diversity brings. Still got work to do, and we'll continue to progress that work. But diversity, and we even do an event where we talk about inclusion drives innovation, and that's sort of the secret sauce. So with that, Ken, I think we'll wrap this up. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Please, everyone, help me thank Ken Meyer, the CIO at Truist, for joining us for this this edition of Tech Talk. I'm Larry Williams. I'm the president and CEO of TAG, the Technology Association of Georgia. Thank you very much.